everyone, how's it going? Cloud here, and welcome to my guide on the Rag and Bone Man wish list. Now, this guide is on the Rag and Bone Man's wish list, not the specific quest. If you want a guide for the Rag and Bone Man quest, go in the description below. It's actually made already. This is basically a sequel you can do to that quest, which is by completing the guy's wish list. So for those of you who've completed the quest, hopefully you're on the right video. So in this guide, I'll be going through all the different bones you need to collect for the Rag and Bone Man. It's the same process as what you've done for the actual quest, however there's a lot more requirements in order to collect all the bones, which I'll go through now. So you'll need these following requirements. You need level 40 Slayer. You also must have completed the Rag and Bone Man quest, obviously, Zogre Flesh Eaters, the Fremennik Trials, and Horror from the Deep. You must have started Creature of Fenkenstrain, and you must have completed the Mogre mini quest. Once again, I'll put the links in the description for all those guides that I have made, just so you can ensure you've completed them before doing this wish list. And you're also going to have to fight a series of high-level monsters throughout this. Their levels will vary, as well as their weaknesses, but I'll go on about that in a moment. So you're going to need a selection of coins to buy the vinegar. As you guys should remember from the actual quest, we needed to buy vinegar to polish the bones. You're going to also need 27 pots in total. Obviously don't bring them with you at the moment, just have them in your bank ready. I'll tell you later on when you'll need that. You will need a dusty key. If you have it in your bank, obviously bring it along with you, or it might even be attached to your key ring. If you can't find it, just double check if you've got it on there. You will also need a light source for when you go into the Lumridge Swamp Caves, I believe, or any sort of cavern we're exploring during this. You're going to need some specific Slayer equipment. All of these you can buy from any Slayer Master. You'll want some fishing explosives, a mirror shield, a spiny helmet, and some ice coolers. And you're going to want a variety of equipment. So as you'll notice on the screen at the moment, my character's wearing full melee, but I've also brought some magic equipment and ranged equipment, as well as a suitable weapon and obviously runes for spells. This will just help because obviously all the monsters you're going to be fighting will have different weaknesses and that, so and it will just make it easier collecting the bones if you're using their weakness against them. One thing I will point out in case you guys don't realise, you'll be fighting Zogres, and Zogres are quite high defence apart from if you use a composite bow and brutal arrows on them. You will know what these are if you've completed Zogre Flesh Eaters, and again that is a requirement for this mini quest anyway, so hopefully you know what I'm referring to there. And the final thing, I just recommend having full access to the Lodestone network, as we're going to go through different Lodestones throughout this guide. And again, if you don't have access to the full Lodestone network, I have a guide in the description below as well for unlocking the Lodestone network. So anyways, this mini quest or wish list is started as soon as you finish the Rag and Bone Man quest, and he will basically tell you at the end of that quest he is collecting other bones as well, and there's 27 additional bones that he is after to go towards his collection. Now these are all the monsters we're going to be collecting bones from: Jogres, snakes, zombies, moss giants, seagulls, ice giants, mogres, jackals, lizards, vultures, undead cows, experiments, werewolves, ghouls, wolves and ogres, Zogres, Dagonoths, rabbits, basilisks, fire giants, terror birds, baby blue dragons, trolls, cave goblins, bats and rats. If you open up your quest journal and go to the Rag and Bone Man section, it will give you his wish list at the bottom, and it will also cross off if you have obtained any of the bones for that monster, just in case some of you guys have found the bones on your sort of travels across RuneScape after you finished the quest previously. So you can obtain these bones in any order you like, and you can take them to him sort of one at a time, or you can do, which I'm going to do in this guide, bring them all to him in one go, which I will show you how to do at the end. Also in this guide I will show you what is the easiest order to obtain them all, just to speed up the completion of this. As it can be quite a long wish list if you're going at different corners of the RuneScape to collect the bones. I'll take you in an order that does it pretty quickly. So that's all the requirements and items and information about this guide. We're just going to crack straight on with it now. So we're currently at the Karamja Lodestone, which can be accessed via the Lodestone network, and this is going to be our starting point. So the first two enemies we're going to go find are Jogres and Snakes, which can be found sort of directly southeast of where we are now. So what you want to start doing is head towards the agility log shortcut, which is located on the river that separates Karamja into the two sort of sections. Just watch where I'm going. Once you get in the agility log, you'll see the Jogres on the opposite side, and once you go across, you want to kill them with their specific weakness or any other style, but obviously if you're using a weakness it'll be quicker. Now the bone we're after is called a Jogre bone, but obviously don't get these confused with the standard Jogre bones they drop. You're literally looking for that difference. Jogre bones are a green pile of bones on the inventory. A Jogre bone is literally just an individual grey bone, so that is the one you're looking for. Again, unlike the quest, these aren't always a high drop rate, so you may have to kill several Jogres and for any other monster throughout this wish list. That is why I recommend using the weakness they have, just to speed up killing them and increase your chances of receiving the bone quickly. But once you drop the Jogre bone, we need to put that in our inventory. So once you obtain the Jogre bone, you want to start heading south, and we're going to go to the location where there's a load of green, large green vines together. You'll also see some more Jogres around this area, but we're looking for the snakes this time. There's quite a few that spawn around this area, which is why I recommend going to this spot. And the snakes tend to not drop anything at all, so it'll be quite easy to identify when they've dropped their bone, and in this case it's a snake spine we're looking for. Again, they're pretty easy monsters to kill, however I found it took me a few attempts to actually get a snake spine from them, so just keep killing all the snakes until they drop the snake spine bone, and then put it in your inventory. So once you have the snake spine, the next monster we're going to kill are zombies for the zombie bone, and the easiest way to find them, there's loads in the Drainer Village sewers. So if you teleport to the Drainer Village Lodestone now, once you arrive, there's two entrances to the Drainer sewer, one which is just near the marketplace and one near the Drainer jail. Enter either way, and then you'll see a load of zombies scattered around the sewers. It doesn't matter what level ones you kill, so you just want to keep killing the zombies until you obtain the zombie bone from them. So once you have the zombie bone, the next location we're going to go to is Port Sarim. If you wish to now, if you're quite limited to your inventory space, you might want to put some of your bones that you've obtained in the bank. I would suggest putting them in sort of like a separate tab to everything else, just so you don't lose where you've put them all. So once you arrive at the Port Sarim Lodestone, you want to go to the docks and go to the northern side of the docks, and you'll see there's a load of seagulls scattered around the area. These are the next enemy we're killing, and we're after the seagull wing bone. Again, these seagulls are pretty easy to kill, so just keep killing them until they drop the bone and obtain that into your inventory. Once you have that bone, we're now going to go and get the Ice Giant bone. Now the Ice Giants can be found in the Asgarnia Ice Dungeon, which is directly south of where we are now, so just watch where I'm going. You'll pass the church, and you'll also be near where Fergo the dwarf is, and you'll notice there's a dungeon sign on your minimap. You want to go into that dungeon and keep following it all the way through until you get to the Icy Cavern, and right at the far end are Ice Giants. Now I believe the Ice Giants and the Ice Warriors are quite aggressive, and it'll be most likely you're getting attacked by quite a few at the same time. Ice Giants and Ice Warriors are very weak to fire spells, so that'll be your quickest way of dispatching them, and you want to keep killing the Ice Giants until they drop the Ice Giant ribs. Just be careful of your health. I don't think there's any safe spots around this area, so you just might want to try and get into a spot where there's less knights attacking you, so you can focus on the Ice Giants. And the other monsters around this area are Mogres. Those of you who have obviously just watched my Mogre mini quest video should remember where we found them, but they're at Mudskipper Point, which is just outside the dungeon towards the south. Now it's up to you. You can either go to the Mogres before you come to the Ice Giants, or go to the Mogres afterwards. It doesn't really make much difference. You're going to be going sort of back and forth anyways. But the Mogres are found at Mudskipper's Point, which is just directly south of the dungeon location, a bit further where Fergo the dwarf was. Once you're near the Mudskipper Point, you'll notice the fishing spot. You want to use your fishing explosive to call a Mogre out to you and then kill it to obtain the Mogre bone. Again, it might take you a couple of attempts, so you might need a few fishing explosives with you until you get the bone. Obviously, if you do run out, you can obtain more from any Slayer Master across RuneScape. So once you have the seagull wing, the ice giant ribs and the Mogre bone, we now want to head to Nardar. Now the quickest way to get there, we're going to go to the Alcarid Lodestone verse via the Lodestone network. Once you arrive, you want to keep heading directly south to Shantae Pass, and I'll speak to you there. Once you're at Shantae Pass, you want to speak to the local rug merchant and ask him to take you to the ruins of Uza, as there's actually an enemy near this location, which is in between Nardar as well, so we're going to head there first. Once you arrive at the ruins of Uza, you want to start heading this direction until you get to the hunting area, and you'll notice there's a load of desert lizards around. Now the desert lizards are the next enemy we need to kill for the bone. Now this one, the level actually does depend, so the only lizard out of these lot, as you'll notice, there's sort of small lizards, medium lizards, and then there's really big lizards. It's the big ones that actually drop the bone, the other ones won't, so don't bother wasting your time on them. So you want to keep killing the highest level desert lizards until it drops the bone. Now they can only be finished off by using an ice cooler on them once they reach quite low health points, I think like to 5% of their original health. Once you use an ice cooler on the lizard, it will then finish it off and it will drop the items, and hopefully it will be one of the bones quite quickly for you, but again, keep killing them until you obtain them. Once you have the desert lizard bone, you want to keep heading south in the direction of Nardar, and as you get close, you'll notice there's a load of jackals around the area. The jackal is the next monster we need to kill for the bone. They're fairly easy to kill, they're quite a low level and don't have many life points, so keep killing the jackals until you obtain the jackal bone. And then the final enemy we've got to find are vultures. Now you'll find them around where the agility pyramid is, so if you keep heading south past Nardar, you should eventually get up to the bridge which takes you there. Now the vultures you can fight with melee, bearing in mind they're on the ground. If not, when they're flying, you can only kill them by using ranged. But again, the vultures aren't really that difficult, especially if you use range. I believe that is their weakness. So keep killing the vultures until you get the vulture bone from them as well. So once you have the jackal, desert lizard and vulture bone, we now want to head towards Canifis location. So we're going to head to Canifis Lodestone via the Lodestone network. You'll arrive just outside Canifis. There's a nearby bank, again if you wish to deposit your bones, just to save you carrying them around, and there's also 4 enemies around this vicinity which we need to kill. Now the nearest ones are werewolves. In the town of Canifis there's loads of people about. If you attack them with a wolfbane dagger, it prevents them transforming, but we actually do want them to transform into werewolves, as it's only them who'll drop the bone. So you just want to keep attacking the villagers around this area to turn them into werewolves and kill each one until you obtain the relevant werewolf bone. Once you have the werewolf bone, you want to head northwest towards where the temple is, where you find Drezel, you should remember from Priest in Peril, and the other quests. And you'll notice there's a load of ghouls around sort of this fenced area, and that's the next enemy we need to kill for the relevant bone. So there's plenty of them around this area, so it shouldn't take you long to obtain this bone as long as you're using their weakness against them. So keep killing the ghouls until you obtain the ghoul bone. Once we have that, we then need to head towards where Fenkenstrain's castle is. Again, those who you should remember who've done the Creature of Fenkenstrain quest. And what we need to do is go where you find the experiments during that quest. So if you go over to where these different tombstones are, one of these you can push, which reveals a secret entrance to a dungeon, and in this dungeon are loads of experiments. And again, you want to keep killing all the different experiments until it drops the experiment bone. It doesn't matter which experiment you kill. I believe you can't harm the one that has the body of a dog and head of a woman, but there's still 2 other experiments types that you can fight around this area, so just keep killing them until they obtain the experiment bone. And then the final thing we need are undead cow ribs. Now the undead cows you'll find on the farm, which is just in between where Creature of Fenkenstrain's castle is and Port Phasmatus. So if you go outside this dungeon and keep heading east in the direction of where the Ectofuntus is, you'll eventually see the farm and a load of undead cows. And again, you just want to keep killing the undead cows until you obtain the ribs. They're pretty much the same life points and level as a standard cow, so again will not take you long to obtain them. So the next place we're heading to now is the Yanil Lodestone via the Lodestone network, so head there now. Once you arrive at your nil, you want to start heading to the west to where a load of ogres are located, as this is the next bone we need to obtain. So there's loads and loads of ogres around this area. Again, I recommend using their weakness on them, and you want to keep killing all the ogres until you obtain the ogre bone drop from them. Once you obtain the ogre bone, you then need to head to where the Zogres are. So if you keep heading in the direction of Castle Wars, and then as you get near turn south, you'll get to the quest start location of where you did Zogre Flesh Eaters quest. And again, you guys should have done this quest, as I mentioned at the beginning of the guide. You need this quest completed to harm the Zogres. And inside the enclosure, you'll find loads of Zogres. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the guide, they're actually very good defense, but they are weak to ogre composite bows and brutal arrows, so I suggest using range and these specific weapons to kill them. You can use other ones, but it might take you longer, but you want to keep killing the Zogres until you obtain the Zogre bone. I will mention that you can't fight the skeleton ogres, only the zombie ogres. They're the only ones that drop the bones, so just pointing that one out. So once you obtain the Zogre bone, the next place we're going to is the Fremennik Slayer dungeon. So first we're going to go to the Fremennik province Lodestone via the Lodestone network. Once there, keep heading southeast until you reach the entrance to the Slayer Cave. You'll see some statues of Kurusk outside, so you'll know you're at the right location. And once you're in the dungeon, you want to head all the way through until you reach the basilisks, as these are the enemies we're fighting next for the basilisk bone. Now, you need to use a mirror shield on these enemies, otherwise they'll drop your stats right down and you'll barely inflict any damage on them. So you should have your mirror shield with you, as I mentioned at the beginning of the guide, and you also need a one-handed weapon in your other hand to actually be able to do some good damage to them. But they're not really difficult as long as you're obviously using the mirror shield, so keep killing them until you have the bone. Once we have the basilisk bone, we need to head back to the Fremennik province Lodestone, as we're going to the town of Relica. I know it sounds like we're doing the same Lodestone twice, but you're going to have to walk all the way out of this dungeon otherwise. So head back there, and then you want to keep heading in the western direction until you reach Relica. Once you're at Relica's main gate, you want to go in the sort of northwestern direction towards the docks, and there's loads of different sailors that take you to different places, but we want to head to the sailor that will take us to Miscellanea. You should see the option as you right click to travel to Miscellanea. Once you arrive, if you head over to this area where there's a load of maple trees, you want to you'll notice there's loads of rabbits around the area, and you need to kill the rabbits until you obtain the rabbit bone from them. Again, they're a very weak enemy. They are quite scattered around though, so it might take you a couple of attempts to click them if you misclick, but you should obtain the bone very quickly. So next we need to go towards the lighthouse. That is what you needed the Horror of the Deep quest in order to access. Now in the Horror of the Deep quest, you would have fixed the bridge, so you've got two options of getting to the lighthouse. You can go via the bridge, which is located southwest of where we are now, and cross that to reach the lighthouse. If not, you can get a games necklace. If you go to the Grand Exchange, you could quickly buy one and use that to teleport to the Barbarian Outpost. Then you can head north to where the rocks are and climb over those to reach the lighthouse. So you've got two options there, depends what you'd rather do, but I'll speak to you when we're at the lighthouse. Once you're inside, you want to go down to the ground level and then into the basement where you fought the Dagonoth Mother in the Horror of the Deep quest. If you haven't been back there since then, the Mother will be gone, but there'll be loads of different Dagonoths in the dungeon, and the Dagonoth bone is the next one we're after. Now, as you go in, it's a multi-combat area and they're all aggressive, so you will find a lot of them fighting you in one go, but they're pretty weak, and actually this makes it easier to obtain the bone as well, as long as you're using the weakness on them. So you want to keep killing the Dagonoths in this area until you obtain the Dagonoth bone. So once you have the Dagonoth bone, we now need to go find terror birds, which are in the tree gnome strongholds. Now, there's an actual quick way of getting there if you teleport to the Eagle's Peak Lodestone via the Lodestone network. Once you arrive there, if you start heading in the direction of where the gnome stronghold is, you'll see a bit where you can actually find the enclosure of the terror birds, and if you have the agility level to do so, you can use a little shortcut to get to the terror bird den quite quickly. If you don't, just keep following the gates around, and then you'll reach the main entrance of the gnome strongholds, and then you can get to the terror birds from there. But you need to keep killing the terror birds until you obtain a terror bird wing bone from them, and again, very easy to kill them as long as you're doing the weakness. Once you have the terror bird bone, we now want to go to the Burthorpe Lodestone via the Lodestone network. Once you arrive there, you want to start heading north where the Death Plateau is and where the Troll Invasion minigame takes place, and you want to head up to the area where all the trolls are, as the troll is the next bone we need to obtain. Now there's loads of them around here. I believe they're weak to water spells, so you can actually fight them at a distance. Obviously be careful of the rock throwers if you use that way to get round there, but you want to keep killing the trolls until you obtain the troll bone. Due to the high number of them, it shouldn't take you too long for this one either. Once you have the troll bone, you now want to go to the Lodestone via the Lodestone network. Once you arrive there, you want to head to White Wolf Mountain, as the wolf bone is the next bone we need to obtain. And again, there's a very high number of wolves in this area that are pretty easy to kill, and you want to keep killing the wolves until you obtain the wolf bone. Remember, once again, you're not after the wolf bones, which are the stack of bones. You need the individual bone, just to point that one out to you guys. Once you have the wolf bone, you want to head back to the Lodestone, as it's quite quick to go back to Taverley Lodestone rather than walking, and then use the nearby bank to deposit your bones if necessary. Once you've done that, the next location we're going to head to is the Taverley Dungeon, which is just south of where the Lodestone is, near the wheat field, so I'll speak to you there. Once you're inside the Taverley Dungeon, you need to follow the dungeon all the way around until you reach the area with the lesser demons, unless you have level 70 agility where you can use the agility pipe, and then you need to use your rusty key that you should have with you or on your key ring to gain access to the area with the blue dragons. And we're not actually going to fight the blue dragons, but they're baby blue dragons, as it's the baby blue dragon bone we need from them. They're very easy. You shouldn't have any risk of being attacked by the main blue dragons, so you ain't got to worry about dragon fire protection or anything like that. So keep killing the baby blue dragons around the area until you obtain the bone. Once you have that, we need to head back to the Karamja Lodestone next. I know we was obviously at the Karamja Lodestone at the beginning, but we're going to be going in a different direction this time. So once you arrive there, go towards the Brimhaven Dungeon, which is just northwest of where you are. You need to pay Saneboch, or whatever the hell his name is, 875 coins to gain access to the dungeon, and then you want to head inside. Now there's two enemies we're after inside here. The first one are moss giants, which you'll find on the way in through the dungeon. You need to use a hatchet on your tool belt to go past the roots and the vines. As you go in this direction over here, you'll see loads of moss giants together, so you want to keep killing the moss giants in this vicinity until you obtain the moss giant bone. Once you obtain the moss giant bone, you want to head further into the dungeon, as we're now after the fire giants. So if you go past this agility shortcut here and keep heading in the southern direction, you'll find an area where there's 3 fire giants together, and you want to keep killing the fire giants until they drop the fire giant bone. These are a lot sort of higher level monster compared to the rest you've fought, but as long as you're using their relevant weakness on them, you shouldn't have much trouble. So once you have the moss giant and the fire giant bone, we now need to head to the Lumbridge Lodestone via the Lodestone network. Once you arrive, you need to go into Lumbridge Castle, as we're after the rat bone. Now, these aren't rat bones as in the giant swamp rat bones, rather they're little rats that run around on the ground floor of Lumbridge Castle. So you'll see a few of them scattered around. They don't have yellow dots on the mini-map, so you're just going to have to look out for them, and you need to kill them until you obtain a rat bone. Now, that should pretty much be a one-hit KO for you on these monsters, as they've got barely any life points at all, and there's quite a few altogether, so it shouldn't take you too long to obtain the rat bone. Once you have the rat bone, you now want to head to the Lumbridge Swamp caves. Now you'll find that in Lumbridge Swamp, which is towards the south of Lumbridge, and the cave entrance is sort of like the middle area of the Lumbridge Swamp. So I'll start heading there now, just watch where I'm going. Once you've gone down the Lumbridge Swamp Caves entrance, I'd equip your spined helmet. It will just protect you from the wall beasts, as we're going to be travelling to the eastern side of the Lumbridge Caves, as we need to find the cave goblin. The cave goblins are in the very eastern part of the dungeon, and there's a few scattered around this area where there's also some cave slimes. The cave goblins don't pose barely any threat to you at all, so it shouldn't take you long to kill them as well, until you get the cave goblin bone. Like I said, there's a few scattered around this area, so just sort of keep doing circles, killing them until you obtain the specific bone. So, once you obtain the Cave Goblin Skull, you want to go back to your quest journal and open up where the Rag and Bone Man quest was, where it gave you the wish list. Now, on your wish list, it should say that we have obtained every single bone apart from the bat bone. I've left that one on purpose because that's actually near where the finishing point is, but it should tell you that either you have one unprepared in your bank or one unprepared in your inventory for every single monster apart from the bat. If any of those are missing by any chance, then obviously you've missed a monster out as I've gone through the list, so just double back to obtain the bone from that monster. But as long as you've got them all except for the bat bone, you can now carry on with this next step. So obviously in the Rag and Bone Man quest you needed to polish all the bones before you could hand them over to him, and how he did that was by going to the Drainer village wine salesman, Fortunato, whatever his name is, and you bought jugs of vinegar from him, which you could then use on your empty pot, which you then used your bone on. So basically we need to do that for all of our bones. This way you can kind of take them all to the finishing point without having to worry about too many trips. However, it's up to you. You can do this bit in several stages if you wish to. But either way, we want to head to the Drainer Village Marketplace to see the wine salesman. What you want to do is put everything in your bank, including the bones and all that, as you're going to need as much inventory space as you can for this bit. So what you need to do next is go speak to Fortunato, and you want to purchase 27 jugs of vinegar from him in total. Now the shop has limited stock, so you might have to wait for a couple of minutes for it to replenish, but you want 27 jugs of vinegar in total. So I'll speak to you once you have them. Once you have them in your inventory, you want to head back to where the bank was, and then in your bank you should also have your 27 pots that I told you about at the beginning part of the quest. And what you want to do is if you withdraw 14 empty pots and 14 jugs of vinegar, as you have 28 inventory spaces in your pack total, you can then put all the vinegar into empty pots ready. So just do that now until you end up with 27 pots of vinegar. Once you've done that, you can now begin putting all the bones in the relevant vinegar, and again what you can do is withdraw 14 pots of vinegar and in your 14 different bones, and keep placing them individually in the pots of vinegar until you have a bone in vinegar. And you want to do this for all 26 bones, as even though there's 27 pots of vinegar, we're still waiting for that last bone. So I'll speak to you again in a moment. So in your inventory you should now have 26 bones in vinegar, and you should also have one last pot of vinegar. So now we can go around finishing this off. Now you need to head back to where the old man was, where you obviously did the Rag and Bone Man quest. Now there is a quick way of getting here, and you can also do this with your inventory as long as you've got the item. There's an item called a Wicked Hood, which you can obviously wear on your head slot, and the Wicked Hood, I think you obtained that from someone in Tatherley. I can't remember off the top of my head, so you might have to Google search it if you're really that interested. And also what you can do with the Wicked Hood is teleport to different rune crafting altars. Now the Rag and Bone Man is located near where the Earth altar is. Now if you've given you an Earth talisman or Earth tiara to your Wicked Hood, you can activate it like you can see on my screen, and then teleport to the Earth altar, which is then only a very short way walk away from the Rag and Bone Man. If obviously you can't do that or can't be bothered to do that, the other quickest way of getting there is go to the Varrock Lodestone, and then you want to keep heading northeast until you reach the Rag and Bone Man. Obviously you guys would have done the quest before watching this guide, so you should remember where he is anyway. So you want to head near where the Rag and Bone Man is, and I'll speak to you in a moment. So you should be at the area where the Rag and Bone Man is. Now you'll notice there's loads of bats around this vicinity, and that's the last monster we need the bone from. So you want to keep killing the bats in this area until you obtain the bat bone, and then you can use the relevant bat bone on your pot of vinegar, and you'll now have all 27 bones in vinegar. Now this last process is quite slow, but it will get quicker as you start doing it, obviously because we've got a quite tight inventory. As I mentioned, you don't have to do it like this. You could you could only bring half the bones with you, do this step, and then go back for the other half, but it's completely up to you. But what you need to do is obviously cook each bone of vinegar on the pot boiler like you did in the original quest. Now there's plenty of trees around this area, so you can keep cutting the trees for logs and boiling the pots. So obviously as you cook each bone in vinegar, you'll end up with a polished bone and an empty pot. Obviously you will not need the empty pots anymore, so you can drop them, and obviously each time you do this you will end up with an extra inventory space, so eventually it will get quite quick. So it'll be slow to begin with. You'll kind of need to keep going to the boiler, polishing the bone, then going back for more tree logs, then boiling the bones again. So it's sort of a back and forth process. However, you might find that a lot quicker than kind of making 2 trips to the bank, especially if you can't use the Wicked Hood method. But basically you just want to keep polishing all the bones by adding the logs to the fire and then the bone in vinegar to the fire, and obviously end up with a polished bone. And at the end of the process you should end up with the 27 bones all polished, ready to go. So I'll speak to you after a few minutes of me doing that. So once you're finished doing that, you should have all 27 polished bones, and you then want to speak to the old man and hand them all over, and his wish list will be complete. And he will then give you the choice of having a bone sack or ram skull helmet. Choose whichever one you want, it doesn't really matter. And then it will come up with, congratulations, you completed the old man's wish list. You're awarded either the ram skull helmet or bone sack and 5,000 prayer experience. So overall, the reward for this wishlist is pretty shit, to be honest. The prayer experience is nice, but you could easily have made that prayer experience in other methods rather than do this mini quest. The main reason for doing this mini quest is there's 2 sequels to this. There's the Fur and Seek quest, and there's also the Fur and Seek wishlist. Once you've completed the Rag and Bone Man wishlist and the Fur and Seek wishlist, you will unlock an activity which you can do every week, which will grant you Slayer experience and also the chance of getting an elite clue scroll. But you need to have completed this wish list in order to do that. That'll make sense to you when you eventually get round to doing that quest. I believe this is also required for the completionist cape as well, so it's going to be something you're inevitably going to have to do at some point. It's a bit tedious, but once you've done it, especially if you do it all in one go like I show you in this guide, it makes it so much easier. Like I mentioned, the final step, you don't have to bring all the bones with you in one go. If you think it's going to be too tedious going back and forth cutting the trees, you can just do it in 2 trips. You could just bring 14 bones of vinegar and 13 logs with you ready, and then go back for the other second half. It's completely up to you. But obviously the route I showed you in the video to obtain the bones is probably the quickest way of obtaining them all in one go without too much hassle. But again, you could go to any of those monsters in any order you like. So yeah, overall, that's my guide finished. You shouldn't run into any problems at all. If you do happen to get stuck at all, like any certain monsters don't seem to be dropping the bones for you, then leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll help you out as best as I can. If not, thank you very much for watching. I have worked hard on this guide, so I would appreciate it if you give it a like, favourite and comment. Obviously, subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.